we see you come, we all don't gladly we dey tell you Cabo. Cabo, 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 Cabo. Anytime we see you, where you go you come, we must tell you Cabo. We dey ask you, mama, wetin you bring for we? Make you give we now, because still dey mourn we. We dey ask you, mama, wetin you bring for we? Still dey mourn we. Make you give we now. From where you left here, where you go, mama? Angry dey catch we no get nothing for it. Na that make where we see you come, we all don't gladly we dey tell you Cabo. Cabo, 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 Cabo. Anytime we see you, where you go you come, we must tell you Cabo. Cabo, 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 Cabo. Anytime we see you, where you go you come, we must tell you Cabo. We dey ask you, mama, wetin you bring for we? Make you give we now, because still dey mourn we. We dey ask you, mama, wetin you bring for we? Make you give we now, because still dey mourn we. But where you left here, where you go, mama? Angry dey catch we no get nothing for it. Na that make where we see you come, we all don't gladly we dey tell you Cabo. Cabo, Cabo,
Cabo, Ekusha. Good evening, good evening, good evening to all my Sierra Leonean and West African people. Today I'll be oscillating between English and Creole because these talk shows that I give are intended to reach the masses. They should go down to the grassroots for them to understand the roots of the issues we have. Because we cannot solve our problems if we don't understand the root of the problem. Otherwise, we'll keep doing the same thing, expecting different results. And that, of course, is the definition of insanity. As the French will say, imbecile. We have to move away from that. We have to begin to look at the issues. What are the reasons for the hold up in our development? What has led us, a nation of one people, similar surnames, similar culture, similar place names across, into this polarization, hate, and acrimony? it's time we begin to look at the issues. Maybe if we see the issues as they should be seen, our politics and everything will begin to be more decent. It's not that we were born to hate ourselves. It's just that we don't have the correct perceptions. We don't understand the issues as they should be understood. And so we keep doing things on that level of negative competition. Yes, it's good for people to be competitive. Progress comes out of competition. But when competition, takes a dangerous dimension, wherein people have to kill each other, people have to maim each other, people have to gossip, to do all those things just to get ahead, then we have to ask, what is wrong with us? Especially in a land with so much potentials, which could have been the richest country in Africa, taking consideration of our population, the resource potentials we have, etc., etc. But please, before I go ahead, I would ask that for those watching, please subscribe to the channel if you've not done so, and share it, because the ultimate aim of this talk show is not about me having 1 million or more people following me for me to make money. It's about having the most people reached so that we get to begin to understand the actual root causes of our problems in Sierra Leone. And maybe some of these issues are applicable to West Africa or even the broader continent of Africa. We have been blaming, we have been castigating, we have been pointing fingers, but let us begin to look at what is really wrong internally that we have not seen, that may be the reason for us being stuck in the wood. Today, I'll be discussing or talking on culture, education, and how that affects development. These are areas we normally would not talk about. We don't consider them, but they are key. They are the very root causes of most of the problems we have in our society. How culture impacts us, or how deculturalization impacts us, because as far as I'm concerned, Sierra Leone is a society that has been greatly deculturalized over centuries. Yeah, we talk about our culture, but do we really understand the role of culture in society? Do we really understand that the culture of a society should be the knowledge base, the database, which forms the foundation of whatever development infrastructure a society has to put up? Have we ever sat down to ask, why is it that other countries, especially the developed world, they put so much emphasis on culture? One thing we have failed to understand, maybe in Africa, or we are beginning to understand now, as I see it, is that when your culture is taken over and another culture is introduced to you, you are more or less a zombie. Your history, Your culture is what defines you. It's your identity. It's your knowledge base. It's everything that you need to move forward. If that is cut along the way or distorted, then you have a crisis in your hand. Because if you don't know where you're coming from, it's difficult for you to know how to go forward. Also, every society, irrespective of the level of development of that society, has certain experiences they have lived with. They've developed certain levels of technology. And if we take a comparative study of cultures across the world, one thing that is clear is that irrespective of the level of development, irrespective of the materials used by the society in its technology, the designs and the architecture are mostly always the same. I'll give you an example. We've seen in least developed societies, people will use rope and trees to construct suspension bridges across streams and rivers. In Europe, they use the same design, but instead of using ropes and trees, they use metal and concrete. That's the difference. That engineer in Africa or in that third world society or down the developed society who has the ability to make a bridge using rope and sticks can be improved. All he needs to know is how to mix the concrete to get the strength it needs, what kind of tension he has to put on the metal, then he will build the same bridge because he has the design in his head. When you come to entertainment, hobbies, games, it will surprise us that we have all these first-class sports like golf, tennis, etc. in our cultures. I remember as a small boy, we used to play with tins, tomato tins. We will dig a small hole, stand at a distance, and use a kind of bat made from palm frond or coconut frond to play the game. That's as good as golf. It's as good as golf. A child who will grow up playing that kind of game can be developed into a first-class golfer. We also had palm fronds, we would buy tennis balls, then we would play cricket. And people advance from that level to become national cricketers, that I know. Why am I giving all these illustrations? I am making the connection between the culture and the ability for the individual to develop his talent or skills. This is where we've had the disconnect in Africa or in Sierra Leone or Anglophone Africa. We left our cultural attributes. We left our games. We left our technology. We faked ourselves, assuming that we are developing. That's not for us. You want to put on neckties all the time. Good. But even in a hot climate like in Sierra Leone, something is wrong with our way of understanding life. The inability of our societies since independence to sit down and look at what is good in the cultures and incorporate them into the training and educational systems is one reason why we are still backward. Asia is making progress because they did just that. They incorporated their cultures into Western skills, Western concepts, etc. And as a matter of fact, one thing we should know, concepts in science, technology, etc. are universal. They are not the domain of specific cultures. No. Pythagoras' theorem is a universal theorem. Newton's law or Newton's laws is or are universal. Everything we learn is universal because everything exists or existed before somebody sat down, thought about it, experimented on it, researched on it, and found out that this law or this natural phenomenon or natural principle existed. It will surprise a lot of us to know that the technology for rockets was discovered centuries ago in China. Yes, it was the Chinese who discovered that technology, or a Chinese who discovered that technology. Then they started using it to make what we call today banga, those crackers that we fire at festivities or during New Year's celebrations. That was invented in China, and it's still a major industry in China, a major traditional industry. China is making a lot of money from that. We had our own cultures in Sierra Leone. We had things that we would have made international. We left them and went for white-collar jobs. Everybody wanted a university degree to get a white-collar job. And honestly, let us imagine that we have 2 million graduates with a university degree. I want to ask, which institution will employ 2 million people just to go and sit in the office, look at files, sign papers, or maybe read and do some composition? I really want to know. Since independence, we have been bypassing the truth. We have been avoiding the truth. We've never taken steps to make our education according to our developmental needs. We've never designed our curriculum or our educational policies to meet our developmental needs. Everything we've done is just politics, whitewash, window dressing. We would have people go to Frobe College, read about Plato, Aristotle, and others. They don't know about their forefathers. They don't even know anything about people who long years ago had the ability to identify herbs as medical treatment. The Chinese are using it today. Between 50 to 60% of the drugs that Chinese use to cure themselves are from herbs. Today there is a global, what about organic herbs, etc. We had that technology before. We left it, thinking it was not good enough. It's the same damage we have done to our most important resource, the human resource. Everybody shout, Sierra Leone has minerals, Sierra Leone has diamonds, Sierra Leone has... Yes, we have all those things, but honestly, if we don't have the human resource that has the know-how to handle them, do we expect to make gains from them? Do we think those people who go and sign contracts to mine will mine $100 million and give $100 million to us because they are crazy in their heads? Do we expect a company that has taken money from other people in Europe to go and invest in our countries to give back everything to us? They come with everything. They come with it, labor, technical labor. They come with the machines. They come with the money and everything. Then we say, hey, we are not getting anything from our minerals. My best advice is, let us close all those mines. Yes, let's close them. Let's rethink. Let's go into agriculture. It's easier to start development with agriculture. All we need is get the people organized so they are willing to work because they know they will get benefits from what they are doing. They are not going to do slave labor. Let's go into agriculture. Let's find a way to fund education. Let's stop this crap about free education. Let's stop that crap. Education is a very expensive investment. It can never be free. It can never. You can go to school, you can create a system wherein people will pay for the funding, then the children will go to school without being asked to pay fees. They will get all the teaching material and equipment they need. But it's never free. Somebody has to pay for it. Somebody has to pay for education. And if a state is ready to develop, the first thing they do is they put all the emphasis on improving the human resource of the country. And improving the human resource of the country is not about going to learn peace and conflict, going to read about Lord Byron or law or whatever. It's about developing skills that will produce goods, tangible goods with quality that can be exported to bring money into the country. It's about educating people to produce services that can bring money into the country. It's not about producing clerks and administrators. That's not education. If even it's education, it's not education for a country that needs to develop. If we are to educate our human resource for development, the advantages that will bring to us is insurmountable. In this country where I live, in 1958, they took a decision that we are going to invest in our human resource because it's an economic good. They found ways of creating a sustainable funding system, taxes here and there, etc. The people agreed to pay those taxes because they trusted those in authority. Trust. They knew those in authority will not take those monies to go and build houses, buy cars, fly private jets, etc. They trusted them. They said, let us pay taxes. And they paid and are still paying. That is why kindergarten is given the relevant weight it should be given. I'll come to that because we have to look at the levels of education where emphasis has to be put, what type of teaching and learning environment has to be created at each level. Every child in this country goes to a kindergarten. The minute the child is 1 year old, the child is admitted in a kindergarten. They have people there who take care of them. Why that emphasis? Is it because Norwegians walk a lot? No. The emphasis is, sorry about that. The child develops the ability to socialize and even to begin to build concepts from that stage. So the more they mix, the more they face challenges of dealing with each other. Sorry. I have a little bit of flu. The more they socialize, the more they begin to learn to deal with each other, the easier it is for them to understand living together. Also, at that level, the child is able to build concepts by play. They play, they learn, and they grow to accept what is learned. And it will surprise you that most of us had our character and everything formed at that early stage. That's why childhood development is very, very important, and it's a key issue that we are not putting weight on in Sierra Leone. If you ask me, part of the problem we have in Sierra Leone is that a lot of people in public offices today had poor childhood, had poor upbringing. They were traumatized. We can de-traumatize them if they are ready, but they were traumatized. And so they grew up as adults with vexation or misconceptions about a lot of things. That's part of the problem holding us back. So the kindergarten is a very, very important component in the development of the human resource. Another thing that the kindergarten does for the child is that all the concepts that are going to be used at a later stage in the life of the individual develops at that stage. So if the child has to play and learn without thinking, it's some kind of semi or some automatic way of imparting knowledge. Not by whipping the child or shouting on the child. They play, they learn in a relaxed environment. So they build concepts about science, about technology, etc., etc. Children in the kindergarten are given mobile phones to play with, etc. Yeah, you may say, oh, because yes, they have it. The society has worked to build that. They did not sit and wait for somebody to come and do it for them. They did it for themselves because they wanted to build a society that is structured emotionally, psychologically, etc., etc. At the kindergarten, they begin to teach the children in a playful way the culture of the land. They teach them the food culture, the dress culture, music, storytelling, everything. They take them on tours every week to go and see different places, encounter different people. They go to the farms, they go to the industries, they go to the towns, they go to watch football matches, etc., etc. You create an inquiring mind, an inquisitive mind by exposing the child that way. And guess what? The child learns faster that way because the child is learning in a natural environment. You don't take a child coming from a home where they speak Timne and Mende or Creole to a kindergarten and begin to speak English to them. That's where we begin to confuse people. The medium of instruction. The other day I had the new Minister of Education, the fellow calling himself Chernoba, talking about using Creole and emphasizing on why Creole. Mister, you're trying to do the right thing, but you got it wrong. You have put the cart before the horse. It's something that needs to be well planned. It's something that needs to be well structured. As a matter of fact, it's not only Creole that we should be using in Sierra Leone. We have 3 languages that are widely spoken through Sierra Leone. First and foremost, let us get a policy, a structure, and the material provision. Don't do things by guesswork. Material provision. And I mean, getting the trained instructors, etc., etc., written manuals or whatever that will outline a national policy on how, why, and when to use those languages. And if we want to do justice to our society, if we want to minimize wastage in education, we have to begin to use those three languages in the regions they are spoken. Three, of course, is spoken nationwide. There are dialects and varieties of it. Like in the Southeast, children in kindergarten up to primary, end of primary, should be instructed in Mendi, whilst they learn English as a subject to improve their proficiency on the use of the subject. Then, gradually, in the junior secondary, do a transition, begin to use the English to teach. Because from kindergarten up to the end of primary schools, the child should have developed all the concepts that will take the child forward. If the educationists understand what I'm saying, because I'm an educationist, I'm talking as an educationist. In your first 5 years of development, you learn a lot. It's like a pyramid situation. The higher you go, the narrower your learning becomes. You don't learn more, you go upwards. No. The concepts that you learn in the secondary school that leads to Pythagoras' theorem is learned in the primary school in a playful way. You build it up gradually. And if that learning process is done in the mother tongue of the child, using local illustrations. If you want to teach a child, go take this orange seed or whatever, use it to make illustrations for the child to understand in his own language, the child will understand the concept better. If we try that, we will see more scientists and technicians in our society. We stop education by the medium of communication we use. Yes, some of us may have been fortunate. Maybe we grew up in homes where English was normal with Creole and other languages, so we were able to pick it fast. But take a child coming from a completely English-less house. You take that child to the first class. You begin to teach the child the alphabet. And you do it in English without consideration that the child may not even understand what you're saying. The interest the child has in what you're saying will diminish with time. That's how we kill talents. By the bad educational system we promote. The system we have was meant to brainwash us and make us look stupid. Now we have improved on it. We don't only brainwash people, we make them jobless. Because if a man can go up to university, then he comes back and sit down and don't get a job to do. And because he cannot use his talent, every human being has a talent, yeah. That is identified when you put the child through the processes that I've just spoken about. But if you don't put the child through that process, you put him through a rote learning system, the inductive learning system, do as I say, don't do as I do. Yeah, at the end of the day, you have created a non-productive, traumatized person. He may have all the qualification. The qualification is not what matters. It's the ability to use what is learned to change the heart. That is what matters. That's why education is necessary. And of course, education is not only a formal process. You can learn without even going to school. But it depends on the environment. If the environment is conducive for you to learn, you will learn. And talking about environment does not mean you should have 24/7 electricity, have a computer, have water. No. The environment is the emotional and psychological environment. If that environment is correct, the child can learn anything, anywhere. There are people who have gone to become great scientists and innovators who came from slums. They came from villages. It's not because some magical power destined them to be, but it's because there was an environment that allowed the person or the individual to focus and build a talent, to focus and build a vision that this is what I want to be. And that's where parenting comes in. The education of the child is mostly with the type of parenting, because the child spends more time in the home than in the school. The type of parenting, the community influences the development of the child. It's the psychological environment that allows or disallows the development of the child. What you say as a parent, your behavior as a parent, what people say in the community, the behavior in the community influences the development of the child. Yeah, by stroke of luck, a few will be able to develop irrespective of the environment, because there are always exceptions in every case. But under normal circumstances, if we mean to develop, we have to look at what needs to be done to get the human resource. The human resource is the most important resource any country can have. Countries like South Korea don't have a single mineral, but they have developed. Why? Because the correct priorities were given to education, the correct funding was put, and in Sierra Leone, we are talking about 25% of national budget. Is that the correct funding for education? Is it? Let's stop dealing with big figures. Let's stop dealing with percentages. Let's look at the needs. What do we need? How much do we need to be putting into education? And why do we have to put that money into education? As I'm talking, I would want to ask, how many schools in Sierra Leone have a functioning laboratory? How many? Even the private schools, how many of them have a functioning physics lab, chemistry lab, biology lab, technology lab for STEM, etc., etc. How many of them? Having computers is not equipment. Let's stop fooling ourselves. Yes, the child may learn about computers, but that's not the only job on earth. Yeah, we are aware. Artificial intelligence is fast taking over the world. But in Africa, one thing we must always look at is that Africa as a continent has a very young population. We cannot make that young population unemployable by adopting artificial intelligence and automation. We cannot. As a matter of fact, Northern Hemisphere countries are growing old. Today, I walk the streets of Norway, I see mostly old people. They are growing old. Africa has a very young population. Sierra Leone, the median age is 19.3 years. That's a very young population. This is the time we should be looking at how do we invest in education so that the generation coming from now to the next 20 years will be productive so that we can industrialize our country or make it maybe one of the biggest export processing countries on earth. Let us stop this window dressing approach to education. We are not helping ourselves. Because at the end of the day, Northern Hemisphere countries with their old people, they will find ways to minimize aid and assistance to us because they need that money to take care of their aged. If we cannot do what will make us begin to be self-reliant now, be ready. By that time, some of us will be dead and gone, but be ready for wars and hunger and crisis in Africa, even with all the minerals that we have. Because the minerals don't develop themselves. It's the human resource that develops the minerals. And if Europe, the United States, China, Japan have old people, then there will be no technicians to come to Africa to develop Africa. Let us stop this, I don't know how to call it, that we call politics. It's not helping us. Let us look 5, 10, 20 years from now and see. Everything we do today is not helping us. We are on the path of self-sabotage and self-destruction. We would always cry, hey, it's Britain, it's France. Yes, they are getting old. You think they care? They have enough money. They can take care of themselves. And very soon, when their welfare expenditure increases, they are going to put harsh laws on migration. They may even ask some of us to go back. Yes. Yes, they will do it. It's time we get serious. Let me share some data about Sierra Leone. Let me share some data. I'll start from the end and come backwards. This is the age distribution of our demographics. If we look at this data, what you see is that 92%, 92.42% of the population are of school-going age. That means this is the time we should look at how to fund education and make it profitable for the nation, especially for a country where over 70% of the population is in the employable age. If we take this is 92% of our population. If we take from this point, age 15 to age 54, which is supposed to be the most employable, productive time in everybody's life, you see there is over 70% of the population in that age bracket. Of this bulk, how many of them have the skills that are required for production of goods and services? Yeah, we may have a few of them with certain rudimentary skills. We may have the bulk claiming to have university degrees, which may be of no use, because having a university degree does not qualify anyone automatically to progress. It's your ability to produce goods and services that qualifies everyone to progress. In Africa, of course, your ability to tell lies and go into politics can qualify you, but that will not continue forever. Let us look at this. Let us say we have approximately 8 million people as at now. If we are saying 92.4% of that 8 million is of the school-going age, that means 7.4 million need to be provided for in the educational sector. $3.5 are in the kindergarten stage, the toddlers, the under fives, who need that care for them to build their concept, for them to build their character, for them to understand what it means to socialize and live with others. Then you have 2.3 million who are above school-going age, but who may be basically without skills. And finally, there is about 1.4 million who are within the age of going to the secondary school, who also need equipment, learning materials, properly trained teaching staff. Because education is not an issue of somebody having gone to university coming to stand in the classroom to talk. It's far beyond that. It's not about examinations. It's far beyond that. As a matter of fact, in this country where I am, examinations don't come first. Your assessment on your daily activities, your output is what takes precedence. Because the educational system here is not inductive, it's a deductive system. They allow you to learn and make your own conclusions, understand it the way you want to understand it, use what you have learned. That's the key. Use what you've learned. That's why they don't force you to learn anything. If you are going to school, they see you like to play soccer, they say, okay, go and play football. Just be sure that you learn some math, some language, etc. Go play football. That's what you love. Do it. They have people there who are technicians who will train you. If they see you are more interested in music, go and play music. Develop yourself in that so that tomorrow you'll profit from it. They see you like making things with your hands, they find a way for you to go into technical. Nobody is forced to learn like we do in Sierra Leone. You know, they learn, then pow. Now they learn, pow. Have to change this. It's our beliefs, our perceptions, our attitudes that we take into everything that we do. And we do everything wrongly. Wrongly. Let us look at this figure that we have. Now, recently we had President Bill saying he's saving $500 per family annually. Please, can we have that, stop saving that $500 and put it into education so that we can equip every school, we can provide teaching materials for every subject, and we can train proper teachers, not talk and talk, chalk teachers, but teachers who will go and understand the psychological and other needs of the child and help the child build a stable future. Will we take that money to put into paying teachers wages that will make them live in society with respect? Because if we are going to spend $500 per child annually, as at now, with the population that we have of school-going children at 7.4 million, we will be spending $7.4 billion annually. And honestly, that money is not enough to fund education. It's not enough. If every school in Sierra Leone is going to have an equipped laboratory with all the materials, the test tubes, etc., if every school is going to have a music lab, a football or sports lab, a carpentry, auto mechanic, and things like that, 7 billion is not enough. It's not enough. I'll challenge everybody to do the maths and find out and prove me wrong. It's not enough. Norway spends $19,800 per child every year, amounting to X billion, number of billions. Yes, they have a way to get the money because they created it in 1958. And one thing I would want to make reference to, Norway has oil. But the oil they have, they don't use the money in the country. It's put in the Norwegian Pensions Fund, the biggest sovereign fund on earth, and that money is invested outside the country. It's invested in over 9,000 multinationals and in about 72 countries. Norway has a stake in every stock exchange on earth. The money they invest goes into the pension fund. Every bit of oil money goes into the pension fund. Then it's invested. The profits they make, it's only 4% of it that is used in the annual budget. The only time they went on to 5.2% was during the COVID, when the government decided that they would pay every employer an amount of money for them to be able to keep paying their staff whilst they were at home. That was the only time they went a little bit above. As at today, the sovereign fund is within the range of 1.4, $1.5 trillion. It's the largest sovereign fund on earth. Next to Norway is China. This is how they have managed to make profit from their oil, and they are keeping that money for future generations. The Arabs are doing the same as we speak. The Middle Eastern countries are investing their oil profits in sovereign funds. Now they've come to Europe, they are investing in entertainment, in real estate, in sports, etc. They buy all these big clubs, Paris Saint-Germain, Manchester City, Newcastle, etc. It's investment, it's business they are doing. I don't know how they do it much, but it's business they're doing. They're making profits for tomorrow. Norway is investing in clean energy and things like that, real estate sector. They invest in capital markets sector. At times they make big losses, but they make gains all the same. In Africa, we have our resources. We are living the dog eats dog life. And we want to blame these people. Can we find a way to improve on our human resource so that we'll begin to be able to use our resources at home? Norway knew they had oil since 1950s. They decided to forget about oil. They asked the people to put money to improve the human resource, to improve the education, to equip the schools. If you go to some of their schools here, the senior secondary schools, for those doing carpentry, the workshop you'll meet is better than the best carpentry industry we have in Sierra Leone. Every equipment is there. It's not only a man, saw, and nail. Every equipment is there. That 19.8 thousand is spent that way. In Sierra Leone, if we say we are going to spend that money, somebody will sit somewhere eating that money. Say, a God Markham. That God that marks us to destroy ourselves. Please, let us ask him to retire now. He's getting old. Let him retire now. Let's have the God that will allow all of us to develop. We can develop, but we have to begin with revisiting our culture, putting weight on our culture as it relates to the educational system, because it has been proven. It's not just an hypothesis. It has been proven beyond reasonable doubt by social scientists that culture affects education. This is some quotation I took from some articles that I'm using. Culture's influence on education. There are many ways that culture can influence education. One obvious way is through the language that is used in the classroom. Bitwa, if I can say it in my bad Mende. Pusokumui, if I can say it also in my bad Temne. The language we use in the classroom is key. That's why a long time ago, UNESCO declared the relevance of use of mother tongue in education. Every February the 21st, it's International Mother Tongues Day. Do we celebrate, do we recognize that even in Sierra Leone? Now we are talking about using Creole. Allah. Juxtapositioning. That's part of the colonialism. We were colonized to become confused, and now we are very much confused. Why is language important? If students are not taught in their first language, listen to that, in their first language, a boy or girl born in Levuma, the first language is Mendi. A boy or girl born in Kabantama, the first language is Temene. If you don't teach them in their first language at a particular stage, they may have difficulty understanding the material. I remember in my primary school days at Songo, there was a teacher, a very smart guy, but people felt he was doing everything wrong. He was teaching in a nearby village called Masimbara. He will go to the class in the morning in the primary school, and he will begin to make the children sing. Otun kono matela dog, oyari kono matela cat. And people were laughing. That's the correct approach he was using. That's the approach we have not used. That's why we have wasted a lot of talent in the last 60 years. There are many scientists and technicians who have grown old and died of frustration because we never gave them a chance. Because we have this toppy-turvy rubbish in our head about education being for a chosen few. Which chosen few? Which God chooses few people? And which religious scripture is it written that there is a God that chose people over others when he is the one who created everything? That culture of supremacy is brought by the Europeans to us, which we adopted and have used wrongly and are still using wrongly, is a key setback to our development. Today, we take pride in attaching titles to ourselves. Ambassador this, engineer that. God help you people. What does that make you? It makes you a clown. It's not what you portray as a title that makes you. It's what you can produce that makes you. And production is not about stealing money. It's about doing tangible things that will assist the human race. Doing things that will leave a legacy for generations yet unborn. We have a lot of rethinking to do in Sierra Leone. Let me come to this other part. Culture and education. I have made it very big and bold for us all to see. Parental beliefs and socialization practices. These are some of the things we don't take note of that are destroying our children. Yeah, don't put on good school. There are no good schools or bad schools. There are good parenting or bad parenting. You can send your child to Harvard, but if the parenting is poor, what has been downloaded and installed cannot easily change. It's just like people think, oh, when I have money, I'll be. No, money does not change you. As a matter of fact, money only shows your real character. If you were a good person before you got money, when you get it, you become very good. If you were a brute before you got money, when you get it, you become more of a brute. You become so cocky that nobody should talk to you. You slap and beat them. You ask, who are you? What do you want to say? It's the same thing that happens in the home. The parental beliefs and the socialization practices. Take note of that. What the parents do. Parents who will send their children to go and buy cigarettes, go and buy alcohol, go and buy whatever. I don't care what school that child goes to. He's going to adopt those habits. Children learn what they live. We are all products of what we lived with our parents. This is how culture affects education again. What we practice, the beliefs we hold, can affect the way our children learn. If you have the belief that you have to go to some hopeless jack who cannot take care of himself, let alone make you a rich man, you say, I they go to Alpha Man, I they go Lugon, I they go Saigon Gay. The idea inside you. You are your own person. You are the one who can build yourself. If you don't use this, the power of God in you, nobody can make you. And if your child grows up with that social perception that some external force has to be contacted for things to happen, you are instituting lethargy in the child. And I'm sure it's one of the things that is holding us back. People don't believe in themselves in Sierra Leone because they were brought up not to do so. That's why we always blame, we complain. One thing we've got to make amends with. Life is meant to be difficult. Life is not a part of, oh, be joyful. It's meant to be difficult. The harder it becomes, the more you should think. Then the more you see the power of intellect grow in you. Maybe for the sake of stability, the harder it gets, the more quiet you should become. Go into your inner self, evoke the powers of existence in you, the powers of God in you. Evoke it. Then you will see miracles happen. But if you sit down to be blaming and not looking at how to solve problems, then you have a condition like we have in Sierra Leone. My dear people, some of us have made a lot of sacrifices in our path. Some of those sacrifices we took boldly and intentionally. We did it because we knew the potentials that our country had. We felt we could be part of changing that country. Down the line, some of us are disappointed that change has not come to the country. And I will say this boldly. Let us stop blaming, please. Let us look at our culture. Let us look at our educational system. Let us develop an educational system that will allow us to develop. Let us incorporate things from our culture into our educational system. I'm not talking about going to incorporate what will bring what, but those arts and crafts, those basic traditional cottage industrial skills, those methods of healing ourselves, etc., etc. Let us find time to begin to research into them. Let us incorporate them into our educational system. There is wealth in most of our cultural things. Our country cloth can bring us wealth. Ghana, they are using the old loom, the traditional loom, to manufacture kente. That's a multi-million-dollar industry in Ghana. Raffia can be a multi-million-dollar industry. We have plants that are spices. Are we looking at how to develop them and make them marketable? Also, when we were going to school, there was this cultural practice of children using that reed they call poker to make vehicle. They will design Toyota, things like that, and ride it. All of those pastimes have disappeared. That's how you instigate innovation, for God's sake. Let us find time to look at our culture. If you cannot, ask us, we will assist you. It's not about money. It's not about money. It's about doing it for God and country. Let us leave a legacy for our country. Building houses, buying cars are not legacies. We've seen that happen before and they've all gone to rot. I'm born in a family that had properties in Sierra Leone. Where is it today? It's all gone into rot. Develop the human resource. Give society the skills it needs. Stabilize the culture. Research your history. See what is common. Use it for the benefit of national unity. If possible, let us have a Ministry of Culture. Norway has a Ministry of Culture. Let's have a Ministry of Culture. If we cannot have a Ministry of Culture, let's have a Culture Commission that is equipped enough to look at what is good about our culture that can be incorporated in the educational system and use it to build. And let's use our mother tongue at a certain level, kindergarten up to the end of primary. Use the mother tongue, teach English as a language. You can even teach French, English, German as a language in the primary school, but do it in your local language. Then you see wonders happen. Please, let us make Sierra Leone. Sierra Leone has so much. If we stop this cats and dogs game and say, let us make this place, it is ours, especially us who think we're intellectuals, we will see wonders happen in the next 15 to 20 years. Thank you for listening. Have a nice week.
We see you come, we all don't glad if we didn't tell you Cabo. Cabo, 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 Cabo. Anytime we see you, where you go you come, we must tell you Cabo. the morning we dey ask you, mama, wetin you bring for we? Make you give we now, because till the morning we. But where you left here, where you go, mama? And we dey get we not get nothing for you. Now that make where we see you come, we all don't gladly we dey tell you.